Meal kind to me, felt like a damn washerwoman.
Yeah.
Felt like a damn woman. Did he or did he not?
You told Bradley that God told you not to knock him out. So I gotta ask you, what did God tell you to do for this fight?
Do the best.
Just do the best?
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Anything else you want to say to your fans, man?
Man, shout out to Dante's Boxing Nation.
Show the roll, man.
Show the roll, show the roll.
Show the roll. Show the roll, man. Show the roll. Show the roll. Show the roll, bro. Show the roll. You got that.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So for those of you guys who don't know already, Andre Ward, he just recently signed a 3-fight deal with HBO. And that deal includes a fight with the Crusher, Sergey Kovalev. So they'll be fighting next year in 2016. Now first, before I get into what Andre Ward was just saying about Sergey Kovalev and a potential fight with him, I just want to say it's pretty interesting because this fight deal that Andre Ward and Sergey Kovalev signed, it reminds me of the deal that Mayweather and Diego Corrales signed, because they also signed a deal where they would meet up and face off against each other. And we all know how that turned out. So anyway, Andre Ward, he did a recent interview with Ben Thompson from FightHype.com, and basically this is what Andre Ward had to say about a potential fight against Sergey Kovalev. Quote, "I'm not ducking nothing and never have. At the end of the day, there's no way I'm gonna come to Kovalev's neighborhood at 175 and at some point not knock on his door and want to play. So that's just that. We're coming to 175 knowing that Kovalev is the top dog. I respect Kovalev, and at some point we're going to bump heads. I think he's an all-around good fighter. He seems to be a hard hitter, and not only that, but he's skillful. So that won't be an easy fight." End quote. Now, the first thing I picked up on when I was listening to this interview is when Ward said, "There's no way I'm going to come to Kovalev's neighborhood at 175 and at some point not knock on his door and want to play." Basically, what Andre Ward was saying is when he goes up to 175, his ultimate goal is to fight the best fighter in the division, which is Sergey Kovalev. Okay? The undefeated, hard-punching, top 10 pound for pound, best fighter in the world, Sergey Kovalev. Andre Ward is saying that he's willing to do something that Gennady Golovkin wasn't willing to do, which is take that big-ass risk of moving up to a higher weight class and fighting the best fighter in the division. Now, for those of you guys who follow your boxing, you already know that Gennady Golovkin, he said that he'll fight anyone from 154 to 168. Then he started calling out Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Then he started calling out Carl Froch. Coincidentally, the guy that Andre Ward actually already beat. But he wasn't interested in an Andre Ward fight. Matter of fact, it was only a couple weeks back that Rock Nation actually reached out to Team Golovkin on the phone, and Rock Nation said that basically Team Golovkin's people, they hung up before they could even talk about any type of stipulations, you know, like money or catch weights or whatever the case may be. Rock Nation said that Team Golovkin, they just pretty much said, we're going a different direction, and that was all there was to it. Now keep in mind, this conversation took place weeks and weeks and weeks after Tom Loeffler said to the media that they were willing to fight Andre Ward at a catch weight in a 50-50 split. Okay? So this is what Tom Loeffler said. And once Rock Nation called Team Golovkin's bluff, they said, we're not interested in the fight at all. We're going a different direction. Okay? Now, we already know, obviously, Team Golovkin, they want the Canelo versus Cotto fight. And that's understandable. That's understandable. It's a safer fight. It's a big payday. And most importantly, it helps Golovkin grow his brand. But the only problem is, what if Canelo Alvarez says he's not interested in taking the fight? What if Miguel Cotto says he doesn't want to fight Golovkin? Then what does Golovkin do? Then the only fighter that will catapult Golovkin's career and put him in a position to be considered pound for pound the best fighter in the world is if he fights against the pound for pound #1 best fighter in the world right now, which is Andre Ward. And when it comes to calling Andre Ward pound for pound the best fighter in the world, one thing you guys will find out is if you talk to the majority of actual professional boxers and trainers, they all agree with that. I could just give you just a couple names off the head right now. You got Carl Froch, Tim Bradley, Kenny Porter, trainer Jesse Reed, and that's just a couple people I ran across outside of Carl Froch. But speaking of Carl Froch, now Carl Froch, he actually said that Andre Ward was #1 and Golovkin, in his opinion, isn't even in the top 10. Now, I know when Golovkin fans hear that, they're going to automatically accuse Carl Froch of being a traitor to the gang in some kind of way. So they're going to try to convince themselves that it can't possibly be that Carl Froch just actually thinks that. He must just be upset. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. He's upset because Triple G called him out. Yeah, that's what it is, right? But that logic makes no sense at all. Why? Because Andre Ward called out Carl Froch for a rematch. And Carl Froch, he didn't take that rematch. So the question is, why is he calling Andre Ward #1 the best fighter in the world and not Gennady Golovkin? Maybe it's because that's what he believes. Okay? So with that all being said, once again, Andre Ward is taking one of the toughest challenges that any fighter in any division can take right now. And that's once again going up against a bigger, stronger Sergey Kovalev. If you look at Andre Ward's resume, this man, he beat Carl Froch when Carl Froch was top 10, one of the best fighters in the world. He beat Miguel Kessler when Kessler was top 10, one of the best fighters in the world. In fact, Carl Froch and Miguel Kessler, they were the two fighters that were favored to win the Super 6. So after Andre Ward wins the Super 6, then he goes on and he fights pound for pound top 10 fighter Chad Dawson, knocks him out. Then he fights against the undefeated Edwin Rodriguez. And now he's already set to fight another top 10 pound for pound fighter, Sergey Kovalev. You know what separates a good fighter from a great fighter? A fighter that beats multiple pound for pound champions. So far, Andre Ward has beat 3 fighters that were currently in the top 10 pound for pound ratings when he beat them. Okay? When he fights Sergey Kovalev next year, that will be the 4th fighter on the top 10 list. Can you guys think of any fighter right now that has beat that many fighters on the top 10 pound for pound list? Now, and I help you out. You got Tim Bradley, who actually did beat 2 guys on the top 10 list. That was Pacquiao, that was Juan Manuel Marquez. You can also say Marquez, he beat one of those guys on the list, which was Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao, he beat 2 of those guys on the list, which was Marquez and Tim Bradley, right? Then you have Guillermo Rigondeaux, who beat 1 guy on the pound for pound list, which was Nonito Donaire. And then you have one fighter who has beat more pound for pound champions that were currently pound for pound champions on that top 10 list than any other fighter probably in history, and that's of course Floyd Mayweather. Now, the one distinction that I will make is the difference from Floyd Mayweather and Andre Ward beating pound for pound champions is that they remained undefeated. Guillermo Rigondeaux as well. Even though these fighters are still fighting, this is not to suggest that they may not lose in the future, but the facts are that they are currently undefeated right now, as opposed to fighters like Tim Bradley, Juan Manuel Marquez, and Manny Pacquiao. So what Andre Ward has already done and is still attempting to do is unprecedented. Now the question I have is, how is it possible that when Andre Ward was in somewhat of a hiatus and you had Gennady Golovkin fighting twice as much as Andre Ward, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, and yet Golovkin still hasn't beat one fighter on the pound for pound list, and he's older than Andre Ward? How is that possible? And the question is, will Golovkin ever fight a fighter on that list? You know what I think Andre Ward should do? I think Andre Ward, if successful, go ahead, fight Sergey Kovalev. If he beats Kovalev, I think he should come back down to 168 if his body will allow him to, and call out Gennady Golovkin. Can you guys imagine if Ward beat Sergey Kovalev, then came back down to 168? And just imagine if Golovkin still hasn't got the Cotto or Canelo fight. Golovkin still searching for that dance partner that's going to turn him into a pay-per-view star, because we found out Triple G is far from being a pay-per-view star right now, with reports of pay-per-view numbers lower than 100,000. So if Andre Ward could pull off something like that, going up to 175, then coming back down to 168 for Gennady Golovkin, oh man, that would be huge. And even Golovkin, he can thank Andre Ward, because then if that were to happen, Golovkin could finally say he's fighting against a fighter that is top 10, pound for pound, one of the best fighters in the world. But in his case, he'll be fighting the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world. How great would that be for Gennady Golovkin's resume? That's all I got. I'm on to the next one.
Hi, you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.